if they haven't done so yet. Would you please take roll?
Ms. Atkins? Here. Mr. Houston?
Here.
Mrs. McDaniel? Here. Mrs. Peterson? Here. Mr. Sorensen?
Here.
Mr. Wright?
Here.
Mrs. Shuffle?
Here. Can I get a motion to approve the March 18th, 2024 agenda?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion?
No.
Vote, please.
Ms. Atkins?
Yes.
Mr. Houston?
Yes.
Mrs. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mrs. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Sorensen?
Yes.
Mr. Wright?
Yes.
Mrs. Shuffle?
Yes. Commendation and good news.
A couple good things. We just started our spring sports seasons. I think pretty much, again, like for whatever reason, I mean, I know the reasons. We work hard, we have good kids, we have good parents, and our coaches work hard, but we're looking to, now can you hear me? There we go. So one of the good things we have is that in looking at our spring sports seasons, you know, if you look at KMA, anything, you know, everything's supposed to be doing well. So tennis teams, track teams, soccer teams, baseball, softball. So it's kind of an exciting, just kind of trying to keep that ball rolling, and golf as well. So everybody's super busy, and hopefully the sunshine changes, you know, helps people's positive attitudes shine through. So I know typically in education we kind of have the lull, right, which is like the end of January through February is kind of our lull for everybody, staff, students, me. I mean, it's just kind of a tough time, maybe into mid-March, but the fact that it's been 60, 70 degrees in March this year has really helped. So
You haven't seen the weather forecast for this weekend, right?
no, we have spring break, so it can snow all at once. There will be
Hopefully
no
it'll-
songs,
yeah.
zero songs.
Hopefully it'll change.
Yeah. Outside of that, as far as good things, we did have an opportunity to meet with the association today, and we did have a tentative settlement in place, so that's awesome. They'll take it back and have it ratified, hopefully by their voting party, and then we'll bring it to you guys on April 1st. So still waiting for that legislature to pass the SSA bill, so we know that what our funding exactly is, but we have a pretty good idea. So it's pretty exciting. So that's about it. Not too much for good news. Kind of a in between seasons type of thing. So
Anyone else? Good news? All right, we'll go then to our comments and suggestions. This is the first time during our meeting that anyone in the audience or anyone online, if they want to type something in, can address the board.
oh, yep. Come on up. Yep. Go with the mic.
Make sure it's on because,
It's
It is.
green. so I'm
okay, you're
seeing
good.
it. This is really quick. I just wanted to add good news. I share an office with Michelle Hendricks, and she came back from mock trial, and they did outstanding work, and they beat Harlan, which was the big thing because they've never beat Harlan, and they did, and they're going to state. So
Yes.
it's really exciting for
great.
those kids and for Michelle. They've worked really, really hard, and I understand that while Jackson Cox is like a really, really quiet guy, I've got him in NHS, so I know him a little bit, and he's really, really quiet, but he's apparently an amazing attorney. And he got like 2 awards at district,
Wow.
so
Awesome.
just wanted to share that.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up, because that's one of the things I wanted to highlight is that this year mock trial, not that it's new, we've had mock trial, but this is the first time we actually are paying a sponsor this year. It's actually going to be kind of ratified into our contract, so that's awesome that they're doing so well. And it was pretty exciting because Jim Dermody, our AD, was like, so he's like, they got to get rooms. Like, we've never had to have this before. Like, we have to get rooms because they have to spend the night. Like, who's paying for the rooms? And I'm like, just get the rooms. We'll figure it out. Anytime kids make it a state, we'll make it happen. So, no, glad you brought that up. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure.
All right, we'll go on to our consent agenda. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Do we have an updated personnel sheet?
No changes.
No changes? Is there any discussion?
One of the things I do want to point out, consent agenda, sorry, I was thinking personnel sheet. So if you scroll in the consent agenda,
To the gifts and grants.
Gifts and
Lisa.
grants, there we go.
Keep going.
3 down, there you go. Right there. So I did want to point this out, so, the board has to, and I guess I didn't realize this, for any gifts or grants that are received, the board needs to, approve, the gifts and grants. So we have a new section on here. I think we've gotten gifts and grants for forever, and I don't know that they're usually presented to the board, but per board policy, we're supposed to be doing that. So, we do have a gifts and grants section now that we'll be putting in, anytime we get some kind of a donation, kind of a larger donation, or grant. So, we have Dr. and Mrs. Rossick. They have donated, they donate every year through a foundation to, they have several goals. Education's a big one of them. Childhood development, career and technical ed, any educational opportunities, those are big ones. So they approached me last year and wanted to donate something, and because I was new, I was like, I don't really know what to take yet. So they approached me again this year and wanted to donate something, and so by this time we were ready, and we said, we could really use, a startup welding program. Iowa Western's pretty full as far as like their physical space, so they donated $100,000 this last November, and we've been using it to create a welding space in our shop area. And so the goal will be, by the time it's done, that we'll be able to hire, or that we'll be able to provide industry certifications for students to be able to take welding courses on site. So that's pretty great. So they donated that. The other part of this was when we were having conversation about it, we don't just have like a bunch of money setting aside like that we could just go out and hire all these new teachers. Like that's not there. And so Doc Rossick asked, he's like, so how do we get the welding certification? I said, well, it's kind of a process. I said, you got to find a teacher who's certified in those areas to be able to teach the college level, who's certified in the industry certifications. I said, that's kind of a niche field, so being able to find those people is not easy. And besides that, we have to pay for them. A new teacher with benefits can cost, $70,000 to $90,000 depending on who you're getting, especially one that's been in the game long enough to be able to provide those certifications. And I said, we just don't have that money sitting around. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to do it, provide it as an introductory class, and then we're going to have to turn around and see what the interest grows, and then we'll determine at some point later on, 2-3 years down the road, if it's something that we want to make a standard class. And Doc Rossick was like, well, I want it next year. And I said, we don't have the money. He goes, what if I gave you the money? And I said, well, then we can have it for you next year. So we did. We actually, so he has guaranteed us first year funding, and then moving forward, we'll just do a revaluation every year. So, and so we hired the welding instructor. Basically with that money, we were able to find somebody that's coming down from Dakota Dunes. They were teaching all of the Western Iowa Tech classes in not only welding, but also in like drafting as well. So coming down with a variety of skills, going to fit right in. It's going to be pretty awesome. So so thank you to Dr. and Mrs. Rossick for your generous donation and ongoing commitment and support. We hope this is a great partnership, and we hope we do well by your kind of what your goals were for the money. And then the second thing, we got another STEM Best grant, and this is for our plastics program. They just continue to grow that thing, and I think we're going to be able to occupy the space by April 1st. So we may end up doing a tour of the plastics, maybe not April 1st because we got some hearings and that kind of stuff for budget, but maybe by April 18th we'll be able to do like a before board meeting tour or after board meeting tour, go down and check out the new space. So pretty awesome.
That'd be great. And thank you too for the donation. I mean, we couldn't do it without.
Oh, no.
And
no,
this is all
be a
for the
non-starter.
kids, so.
Exactly.
And to provide, especially in the trades area, to provide something like this.
My son is already signed up for welding for the fall, so
Awesome.
he's very excited to have that opportunity.
So they did do a survey with kids and incoming 8th graders, and it was about 50% of the kids filled out the survey, and out of those 50% that filled out the survey, 50% of those kids said, yeah, we're in, we want to do welding. So if think about that. If we have 1,000 kids and a quarter of them want to do welding, I mean, that's already 250 kids that want to do welding programs. So that's pretty awesome. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, we have a motion and a second, and any further discussion? Vote, please.
Mr. Houston?
Yes.
Mrs. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mrs. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Sorensen?
Yes.
Mr. Wright?
Yes.
Ms. Adkins?
Yes.
Mrs. Shepherd?
Yes. Report 6.01, Dr. Lisa Hartman, Instructional Framework.
yeah, so Dr. Hartman, so when she and I both came last year, we just started having conversations with people about, how do we do things around here? And one of the things that kind of became clear was when it came to like instructional framework, the district didn't really have one. Per building, they had expectations, learning objectives, teaching expectations, et cetera, that they were utilizing within their own classrooms and the building level, but there was no real cohesion when it came to walk through templates or look fors or anything like that. And so kind of tasked Dr. Hartman with coming up with a instructional framework. So she's really led all this work. And so for the last year they kind of checked a few of them out, landed on the Danielson model. And so then for this year, she's been working with the coaches at the building level and then the administrators and getting everybody on the same path and developing a instructional framework that we can call our own. So.
All right, well, I brought some friends with me. Kim Muda and Maggie Miller are two of our instructional coaches who have been taking a leadership role in this work. And then Laura Kester, who is our school improvement coordinator, and she's been supporting a lot of this work too. So I'm going to take the first couple of slides and then we're going to alternate and then they're going to do some of the work too. So like Dr. Hazing said, when I first got here, there had been a group of people who had spent a lot of time digging into instructional frameworks. They had dug into the different frameworks that were out there. They had considered making their own. And so when I got here and started asking questions, one of the big things was, please don't drop the ball on this. Like, people have spent a lot of time and energy on this, and people have been very excited to have a framework to move us forward with. So I knew it was really important to be able to continue the work that a lot of people had done prior to Dr. Hazing and I getting here. So in looking back and preparing for this presentation, I started to look back for like, where did this all get started? And so again, when we came in the summer of 22, this would have been right prior to that, but there was some things that were identified that would be really important things to have as part of a instructional framework. And so these three things is what the committee prior to our arrival had landed on. And I think as you'll see as the rest of the team presents, that we've still remained true to these things. So you can see we're looking for high quality teaching and learning. We're looking for evidence-based strategies. We want to accelerate student success through those things. We want growth in teacher practice, this natural kind of development where there's clear standards, quality professional learning, and then the focus is driven by student learning needs. So again, those are still at the heart of where we're at. And then there's this document that was, again, created before I was here, but these were some foundations that was important to the group. So those first three things is what I just read to you. And then here's a couple more components that was important was there would be this learning progression. This would be incorporated into how we bring on new teachers, beginning teachers who are going through our mentoring process. It was also important that this would be tied into what our evaluation protocols look like. We'll talk a little bit about that today too. And then we're looking for just ways where we could include some evidence of growth and proficiency towards targeted professional standards. Currently, as it's part of Iowa Code, but it's a practice at Lewis Central that each teacher has an individual professional development plan each year. So we wanted to think through that, be inclusive of that as well. And again, just support that teacher growth and think about what personalized professional development looks like for teachers. So that's where we have been prior to our arrival and then coming here. And then the 22-23 school year, when I first met with that committee who started work on that framework, they said one of the really important things for them was they wanted admin to be on board. They felt like the best way to move this forward and be sustainable was to have admin buy-in and belief and knowledge. So Jen Johnson, who's an instructional coach and has a lot of background in this work, her and I both did some training for our admin team. Then in the meantime, the Danielson framework kind of switched up a little bit, how they have the framework, which the team will share a little bit about. So we've done year 2 of some admin learning. A couple people went to a training and a conference, and they've brought back that learning. And it's been really exciting to watch our admin team take that learning and run with it. So with that, I'm going to pass it off to Maggie Miller, instructional coach.
Hello. So I'm one of the people that was able to attend the Institute to learn a little bit more about the Danielson framework. I've worked with it for several years as a mentor with our new teachers, and it was work that we were already doing with them, but we were looking at how can we run this out system-wide. Do I need to start over? So the Danielson framework is organized into 4 domains. Domain 1, planning and preparation, and domain 4, principled teaching, is some of the behind-the-scenes work that happens when teachers are collaborating with each other or even just working alone. And then domain 2 and 3 are learning environments and learning experiences, and those are observable in the classroom. So when admin are doing walkthroughs, doing some of the evaluation, it's very easy for them to see some of the things that are happening in domain 2 or 3, but conversation needs to occur to learn a little bit more about what's happening behind the scenes under those other domains. So each of the domains has been broken down into 22 components, so 5 to 6 for each one. And so this gives the opportunity for a teacher to get in a little bit more specifically on what they're wanting to improve on. In the past, when working with evaluation around the teaching standards, it was basically a yes or no. This gets very more specific for them, and they can kind of fine tune. I heard Lisa mention professional growth quite a few times, and that's a big part of an instructional coach. We go in and do that personalized professional development with them. So each of these is broken down even further, each of those 22 components, into elements of success. There's 76 of them, which is a lot of ways to demonstrate success. Each one is broken down into a progression. There are categories of unsatisfactory, basic, proficient, distinguished. So again, this is an opportunity for a teacher not determine that they are meeting the mark or not, but how well. And so they can have self-reflection and notice through these descriptors that maybe I'm performing at more of a basic level and I'd like to push myself to be more at a proficient level. And that would be something that they could be doing on their own. They could be using their career development plan. They could ask to work with a coach or even with their admin. Let me double check my notes so I got everything there. That is. Do we want to pass those out as you're going into yours?
All right, what's coming around is a closer look at, whoops, is this in out of order? Okay. What's coming around is a closer look at the domains, and you're going to see that there's some highlighted ones. I'm going to talk about those in a minute. Those are the priority components that were selected. But I'm going to review kind of what we've done up to this point. All of our group went to a training and got some more learning from the Danielson group. Lisa mentioned that they made a lot of changes, so that was very valuable. We've been able to bring that learning back to the coaches and the principals. Then the next step was the principals worked together to identify characteristics. So what we did is we said, before they even saw this, we said, if you could describe what a Lewis Central teacher needed to be successful, what would that be? They did a lot of brainstorming. We had posters all over the room. So we had this great picture of what we thought a successful Lewis Central teacher would have, and then we back mapped it to the criteria that you see. So through that process, what you see highlighted was what they chose as essential components. So you saw how large the framework is. It would be impossible to really go deep with all of it. These are what we say are the essential components. So we want to say that all teachers are proficient on these 10. And that helps us to bring focus to the work, helps teachers to focus on what they should, to prioritize what they should focus on as they think about their professional goals and growth. We also crosswalk them with the Iowa Teaching Standards, which is Iowa code. We have to do that for evaluation purposes. And now we're beginning a process of unpacking each one of these. So we go step by step and we dig into what everything means with each component. And we're taking that slow with coaches and administrators this year. I mean, you'll learn more about how we'll do that with teachers moving forward. So, again, these are it's going to come up on the slide, but you're looking at the priority components. And our goal is that teachers will be proficient with these. When they're not, we will give them support and learning that they need so that they can be proficient. And again, our goal is proficiency with all of these. Interestingly enough, the Danielson group did their own prioritizing. And so we compared, and they prioritized 1B, 2A, 3C, and 4F, which we had also selected without knowing that ahead of time. So we felt like we were really on the mark for choosing good priorities for our district. Okay.
All right, so I'm just going to talk a little bit about what we've been doing and what we're going to continue to do this spring. Administrators and coaches are separately, in their two separate groups, continuing to unpack the priority components. The work that we're doing, honestly, is really similar to the work that is happening across the district in terms of deciding on and unpacking priority standards. So very similar work. So what we do is we take the component and we think about what it would look like and sound like in a classroom where that component was being met with at least proficiency. And so we do that in different groups within our coaches group. And then we do a kind of a gallery walk and see what everyone has put down. Then we look at a video. This is the next bullet point on there. We look at a video of a teacher in action, and the coaches use the video as a way to think about a teacher's goal in that particular component, and how would we frame a conversation with that teacher, a coaching conversation. The administrators look at the videos with the purpose of where would we rank this person on that proficiency scale, and what would be our evidence? What would we do in next steps with the teacher? So that's what we're doing right now. Moving forward, it'll change here. There it goes. So for 24-25, administrators will continue learning walks, and they'll begin to use the framework with new teachers and teacher leaders that already exist in the buildings. Instructional coaches will continue practicing coaching conversations with videos, so we'll continue to unpack the components. And then we'll have the coaching opportunities with teacher leaders around the Danielson framework. The staff will begin unpacking the components throughout the year, and they will actually, after they unpack each component, they will generate one or two possible goals that they might have with that component. The idea is that by the end of the year, they will have unpacked all the priority components. They'll have several goals to choose from for their CDP for the following year. Instructional coaches will lead that unpacking of the components on Early Out Wednesdays. Okay. So now I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Hartman because I don't want to take this slide.
So it's been a slow rollout, like Dr. Hazy, and I like to move fast on things, but they've kind of reeled me back in, and looking back, I am grateful because I feel like the approach that we've taken together is lending itself to be a process that's going to have a lot of stability with it. Just this slow, gradual buildup of capacity, whether it's our admin and our coaches. And so I'm really excited for it, and I'm very thankful for the work that was done before, thankful for our coaches, our admin team who's been digging in, and a board who's supportive of, sending people to get professional development and do this work, because we're almost there. Next year, teachers are going to get to experience this, and it feels really exciting to finally be able to put in teachers' hands and admin hands something that they've been asking for a long time. So questions that you guys have that they could answer for you? We were just so thorough.
I know, you were. Now, will this change every year? Or is this what?
So like
just
Kim had
working.
said, we're taking a very similar process as like what the teachers are experiencing as what's called a PLC, so their professional learning community process. And so they identify their priority standards for their coursework. Probably that won't change. However, we are constantly making database decisions. So in our groups, if we're looking at data and we're thinking, gosh, there's this other priority, like maybe we want to, so if our collaborative conversations lend itself to that, then
Okay.
it would, but probably not.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I was wondering, because if you see that, something develops next year that, gosh, we need to tweak this a little bit. I just didn't know if this was the stone and.
Well,
then
and
go
again,
through
like
it.
all of the components are important, just like all of your standards are important in your
Right.
classroom. It's just impossible to teach to the like 100 language arts standards you have. So these are the ones that we want to say, we're going to guarantee, like Laura said, that we'll come in and provide supports for staff if they need support with it. So yeah, it could change
Right.
a little bit,
Well,
but
and even in 3 years, you never know.
true.
And
Yeah.
as long as you have the framework to start,
Mm-hmm.
then you can build on it and kind of, I get that. So that's good, because, I think anytime, if you have the starting point and the flexibility to see what is the need, that's important.
Yeah, good point.
And to be clear, this is being rolled out district-wide.
Yeah, so next year, we're gonna take, in the fall, there will be kind of a kickoff with it. We'll talk about the why, what's an instructional framework, do some things with staff back in the buildings. And then each month, there's gonna be one of those components that we're gonna have coaches lead the process and doing some PD. So if somebody is a teacher leader, they will be like experiencing it, so they'll be using it with their administrator. But then it won't be until the next school year that all teachers will be using it. If they're on cycle and being evaluated, then that's when other teachers will use it too.
Have you encountered any challenges to assimilating the framework so far?
One of the biggest challenges was just the change, because before there was this conversation of clusters. The other thing that's been an advantage a little bit is Lewis Central for years has incorporated this with new teachers. So the language has been a little bit different with the change. But then one of the challenges was once we taught new teachers some of this, then it just kind of was like, okay, so good luck. Like we didn't have any other like ongoing support or learning for them. So that's been a challenge. Laura's been very intentional too about getting feedback from different groups about, we have a rollout plan that goes over the next like 3 years. And so they've been trying to pick it apart and find challenges for us. And a lot of it has been, make sure you talk about the why, make sure you talk about the why. Any other challenges as we've gone? I'm sure a year from now we'll be able to come back and tell you some more we had.
Any other questions?
All right,
All
thank
right.
you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Keep us posted, we can get a report in a year or two and know what's going on. Okay, we'll go then to our superintendent report 6.02.
Okay, so a few things as far as facilities goes. We continue to push forward with kind of our yearly facility upgrades. We're trying to figure out exactly what the numbers are going to be finalized for the high school HVAC roofs and kind of commons area renovation. There are some other things that we need to take a look at the high school, like for instance, now that we're going to get the humidity under control in the high school and the athletic wing, we need to go through those spaces somebody brought up, you know, the potential for mold, like underneath there's a false floor in like the weight room. So, look underneath the false floor in the weight room, look underneath the false floor, because it's like a rubber matting on top of concrete. So over time, the roof has leaked and, you know, so we're probably gonna look at pulling up that floor this summer to try to figure out, you know, and then when you pull it up, probably just need to replace it. The floor has been there for many years. So, that'll probably be a project that we try to get done, this summer as well. Just recently, a playground grant popped up for Titan Hill. So I looked at that, submitted a grant, see if we can get some grant funding. That might be back on the table. We do have some money, kind of sitting out there for summer projects that we haven't really assigned yet. So I know that that's been a big priority you have 1,000 kids playing on one playground. So if we can figure out a way to get, some more equipment pieces up there through the use of a grant, that would be fantastic. So we're still looking at that, we should be having potholes filled here in the next month, right around the campus, high school, middle school, Titan Hill, Access Road. So hopefully we get all those fixed. We're looking to extend the road. So in the back of, Creft, one of the things we're talking about, if we're gonna revamp preschool pickup and drop off, is they worry a little bit about the amount of traffic that's gonna be there, all there at the same time. So we need to put a little tiny road in, just an asphalt road from kind of where it stops right now. So it goes around the back of the building and then stops, and then there's just like grass, and then it picks back up at the blacktop where the kids have recess, and then kind of exits back out the parking lot. So we're looking to potentially finish that from where it stops through the playground, so we can actually send parent cars behind school in the morning and the afternoon. We don't have recess anyway, so it's not like they're gonna be competing with basketball. So opening up the gate, letting the cars come through, we'd have to have a little wider gate on the parking lot side of it, and then having to go around the back of the school, having the bus and go around the front, having some area for preschool parents to if they want to pull up and drop off. But that should significantly improve our traffic issue down there. So it's just something we're exploring. We don't know of any prices or anything on that yet, but that has popped up here in the last month. So just wanted to give you guys a heads up on that. Otherwise, it's your typical stuff. Cameras, we have to have a constant replacement schedule for our cameras. Carpet, some paint, some furniture, some electronic components. We'd love to get a phone system, like a whole new phone system, but that is quite the project. So probably targeting that for maybe next summer, since we're doing all the HVAC and stuff this summer. So just trying to really balance that. I'm gonna bring a recommendation to purchase the rest of last year you guys purchased, I think, 8 cameras for our buses, the stop arm cameras, that when the stop arm goes off, they're able to collect the data, the camera footage if people go around buses. We kind of sporadically put those, because they're expensive, so about $2,000 a bus. So we kind of sporadically put them around the buses, and so now that we've had that, we're gonna finish out the rest of the buses. So there's 18 more buses that I asked Chuck to get us a quote on, so that way we can potentially finish those off. And then anybody who goes around our bus, when the stop arm's out, we'll be able to catch them and we'll report them to the police, because that just creates such a safety issue. I wish people would just slow down a little bit and realize that, like, the bus is gonna stop for maybe 2 minutes. Like, just hang out, let the kids off safely, and then they'll continue on their road. So, so those are some types of things that you guys will see come through here in the next few board meetings. Legislatively, they're still not passing our student supplemental aid. That is one thing that we'd really like them to pass, because then we would be able to formally set our budget. I'll tell you that we had to put out, the new regulations require us to put out the budget, proposed budget, and then there's like a first hearing, and then there's a second hearing. So what we do, unfortunately, when you put out the first budget with the first hearing, that is the maximum amount of money that we can put out. So let's say we're gonna estimate SSA at 2.5%. That's what the governor and the Senate do. We estimate at 2.5%. We send that budget out to the community. The state comes in and approves a 3.5% increase in budget. that we're not allowed to increase our budget. We can always decrease it, we can't increase it. So the main thing I want to get out is the fact that like, the budget that we put out is the maximum budget we could possibly put out, because, and it's not gonna stay that way. Once they settle SSA, we'll be able to actually give an accurate budget. So unfortunately, the state kind of makes us play games, right? Like, we can't give an accurate budget because if the state gives us more money, then we don't have access to it. So we put out what we think the state could possibly give us in the best, absolute best case scenario, knowing that it's never gonna come to fruition, and then we adjust it down. So, it's kinda like if I go to the concession stand and I give my kids a $20 bill, they can't come back and ask for more. I mean, they do, but they can't, I'm not gonna give them more, you know? They can give me change if they want, but, you know, that's it. So no SSA bill. They're supposed to be doing a bill on the AEA. I think the Senate was actually discussing it today. I have put my name on an editorial piece. I was getting upset. There were several superintendents across the state that basically put an editorial in the Des Moines Register to be put out that basically said that, you know, all superintendents across the state support total reform of the AEAs. And a bunch of us are like, no, you don't speak on behalf of me. Like, we all support potential change. We all support advancement. We all support improvements to our current system, but we do not support a destruction of the current system. I support a thoughtful change. I support flexibility. I support a plan that is done through some research and some timeliness, and that gives us the time to make the adjustment. I don't support, we're gonna tear it down, you're gonna have, and you're gonna have to rebuild it in a matter of months. Like, that is, in my opinion, too difficult to do and detrimental for kids, especially with small schools. Large schools, probably do it. We're one of those medium to large schools that if they were to have us do it, we could probably make it happen. But at the end of the day, I've been in small schools, and I'm not about to, you know, to eat up small schools to do, you know, maybe the same thing we're doing already, you know. So I just wanted to be on the record, and I made sure that the article stated this, that we are not against change. I'm for change. In fact, I consider myself a change agent, but reckless change I'm not for. Thoughtful change I'm for. And so that's what I want to make sure that we capture, is that any change that takes place is done so in a thoughtful manner with the input of many different people. And so, and I do not feel that that's the way it's been. I feel like every time I see a plan roll out that's close to what I could possibly agree with, like, okay, that makes sense. Then they come back and they put the old plan back into place that was terrible to begin with. And it's like, don't do that. You're moving it, you know, it's like one of those 4 steps forward, 3 steps back type of thing. Like, we got to quit playing this game. So, and the later it gets in the year, the more difficult and damaging it's going to be if they do make the change for us to be able to react in the timeline that they want us to react, which is June 1st. It's going to be so hard. You're going to see every school battle it out for the few AEA employees that are out there, rather than have thoughtful change in which we can all get together and work together collaboratively to be able to create a better system. So anyway, but the governor has made it known that there will be no SSA until the AEAs are passed, and so we're trying to figure that out. There will be no, sorry, Josh sent me something. I thought it was there will be no, sorry, what is it? The Senate passed it. Okay. So this is what I've been told. I've been told the Senate's going to pass it. The House passed their bill, which is the one that I can get closer behind. The Senate's going to pass their bill, which looks more like the governor's plan, and that's going to start the conversation. So just because the Senate passed it doesn't mean it's law. They're so far apart right now in what their plans actually look like that they're going to have to work together and come up with a compromise. My hope, though, is now that they passed it, they can focus on SSA, because that's one of the things that we really need them to do. So, and they're pretty far apart in SSA too, so if they can get that together, that'd be awesome. If they end up approving any of the teacher salary stuff, it's not going to affect us. It's not going to affect Council Bluffs, because we are already at that 47.5 beginning threshold that they're going to make us go to. it will be a substantial boom to small schools if they can provide some consistent funding to it, which they have not guaranteed that that's going to happen. So my fear is that they're going to make small schools increase their wages by 30% and not give them the money, and that will not be helpful to them. So so that's kind of the legislative update. The last thing that I wanted to talk about is, so we've been talking about how to receive feedback. You know, I think we got a lot of feedback when we ran the bond this last fall, as far as, you know, people who were for it, people who were against it, people who were on the fence, people who didn't vote. And so we kind of got together and said, you know, how do we get the feedback? Like, what does that look like? How do we make sure that we understand? And the feedback I'm looking for is not necessarily, did you vote yes or no? Like, that's your own personal thing. The feedback that I want to know is, how can I better reach you? How can I reach out? Because I had several people that I talked to that were like, well, I didn't know anything about it. And I'm like, okay, so tell me how you didn't know anything about it. They're like, well, I don't know, just nobody ever contacted me. And I said, well, I was on the radio, I was on the news, I was in the paper. We sent out things directly to your house if you're a registered voter. We had, you know, banners at the school that talked about it. I was on social media, it was on our website. And one of the gentlemen goes, well, I don't watch the news, I don't get the paper, I don't listen to the radio, I don't really drive in that area of town. I was a registered voter, but I moved, so I probably didn't get that. And I said, well, then how do I contact you? Because I am all about helping you out. And I said, it was like walking neighborhoods. They're like, well, I live out in the county kind of by myself. And I'm like, he goes, you're probably not walking in my neighborhood. I'm like, okay, again, like how can I reach you? And he's like, well, did you think about having any, and he goes, what about like an open forum, like for people to come and like an open meeting? And I said, that's a great idea. We've had 12 of them. So I said, he goes, well, I didn't know about them. And I was like, again, like now that I know, I'll come out to your house and drop a flyer off. But so my point is that, you know, I want to know how to communicate with people. I want to know how to reach them. I want to know how to contact them. I want to know. So we had a survey put together that essentially was like, you know, did you vote? If you didn't vote, what were barriers to voting? You know, was it did you know that you can receive a absentee ballot beforehand? Do you know how to receive an absentee ballot beforehand? Do you know that? Because my biggest thing is I just want people to come out and vote. Like that's what we need. And you know, do you have any, you know, if you knew what the last plan was, do you have any recommendations? Was there something in the last plan that you definitely loved? Was there something in the last plan that you were like, no, that's never going to fly with me? You know, just basically an opportunity to provide feedback. Unfortunately, the plan was for us last time I left was I was going to send it off to a print shop. They were going to print it. They were going to stuff the envelope. They were going to put another envelope in there with a return address, which required 2 stamps. One to send it there, one to send it back. And then we were gonna, you know, receive the data. I don't know why, when we were sending out a postcard to 6,000 homes, it was about $3,000, and that was just a postcard. I don't know why I thought that a full-size letter with 2 envelopes, two stamps was gonna be about $3,000. And you have to have somebody physically stuff the envelopes. So the whole process is going to be a very costly manner. You know, it's $9,000 to $10,000, and so I'm going to make the recommendation that we don't mail these out, because if we have $9,000 that we're sitting around, not that I don't want good feedback, I do want good feedback, but the return rate on those things is like 10 to 15%. So to say we're going to mail it out, spend $9,000 to mail it out to 6,000 homes and get 600 back, and half of those 600 or majority of those 600 are parents anyway. You know, it just doesn't seem like a good financial use of our dollars. And so when I can use that $9,000 just so happens to be one classroom HVAC unit. Like, so I could use that to be able to purchase a heat pump for a classroom. So my recommendation is going to be, instead of mailing these out to these homes, that we use the resources we already have. We're going to put them in kids' backpacks, send them out. Ask parents, you know, to help us promote, you know, the survey. It's a QR code too. They can do it with their phone. I'll text it to them. We'll email it to them. I'm going to contact the paper and see if we can make partnership with the paper, put an ad in the paper that if somebody wants a paper copy, that will have them located at every building. They can come in and fill out the survey. We'll put it on our social media, we'll put it on our website, and we'll see if we can, get a decent response back. And the whole thing is we just need feedback, because at the end of the day, I mean, that's why these guys are here. Our problems have not gone away. We have the same problems now that we had, 6 months ago when we were asking the community for a bond. We're gonna do a demographic study to determine like what does the growth look like, and when that comes back, that's information that we're gonna use as we move forward to try to figure out how do we make it so we don't have 35 elementary kids in a classroom in the next 5 years. How do we make it where our kids go to school in classrooms that are temperature controlled, that they're dry, that we don't have parking lots that are deteriorating, like those types of things. Like, that's what these guys are here, try to help us create a good plan to be able to do that. And so part of that's feedback. I need to know how to communicate with the community. We got almost 52% of the vote. So that's one of the things that when you look at that, you say, okay, but we only had about 2,800 voters in a district that has about 8,000 voters. So we got to figure out like how do we get a better group of people together to be able to come out and vote? Like how do we get more people to come out? If it fails again, it fails again. Like that's great feedback for us. But I need to figure out how do we make sure that everybody knows they can vote? How do we make sure they get out and vote? And then if there's really things about the plan that people liked, how do we capture that? And if there's things about the plan that didn't fly with people, how do we capture that? But at the end of the day, I don't necessarily, think it's wise to spend the amount of money that we are going to spend on it to be able to send that out, So anyway, moving forward, that's the direction that I'm going to recommend. That's the direction that, unless I hear any big, like, no, I don't agree with that, that's the direction that I think we should go as far as letting people know there will be a survey coming out. We want people to take the survey. If you need paper copies of the survey, we will get them to you. I will personally drive them to you with a pen to have you fill it out, and I'll bring it back. And you can write, I hate Dr. Hazing, but I don't really care what you write on it. It's your opinion. But I will do that. So anyway, that's kind of that's all my update, I guess. Any thoughts on the survey?
One thing that just came to mind is I think if we decide, if the community decides to go to an election this year, or the board this year, I don't know if we're going to have the issue like we did last election with not having enough people show up. I think people are going to show up this election just because of this, what's at stake with everything else.
Right.
So I'm still interested to see the reason why people didn't show up last, for that survey. But
Right.
I wonder how applicable it's going to be to this go around, or not. I mean, any information and data is really important and good to know, but
Yeah,
just something
absolutely.
that just kind of came to mind.
Yeah. Any questions?
Do we know the numbers of people that vote in presidential elections? So we can, the last 8 years or whatever, just to see.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Because I would just be curious to see, does 30% more come out for presidential elections? Is it?
I want to say that when I looked it up, because I was wondering, like what was the most we had, and I think in the 2020 election there were, I'm going to throw out a number there, I think it's fairly accurate, but I think something like 4,800 people showed up to vote in the presidential election in 2020.
Just a little bit more. Yeah.
That's what I remember, that number. But then we had, 200 people show up and vote for the Pepple. So like, I was kind of going in between there, so it wasn't kind of surprising to me that I thought we would get more in the 3,000 range, 3,500 people vote in this last election, so 2,800 was, and it turns out that was actually one of the highest turnouts we've had in any kind of a vote. So I guess more than I anticipated.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I have no doubt that a Biden-Trump election will get people to show up. So, so the main thing is we just need to make sure we are able to communicate with people. If we were to run the bond this year, what that looks like, knowing that we can't run the same bond. Like that's not even possible, because the bond last year was a 2-question bond. The second question, we can only ask an odd numbered years. So the only reason that we would go after a bond this year would be for an outside, reason. Like for instance, every year that we wait, the cost of elementary schools or schools in general goes up, 3 to 5% every single year. The need's not going away. That we look at our current infrastructure and knowing that we're trying to chip away at it piece by piece, but knowing that the only way we can really get at it is with a large, a large group effort. Or like, for instance, I mean, our land is a big thing. We purchased land with the only land in the area that'll allow us to, kind of consolidate our school. And how long are they gonna give us to make that second, the second purchase, If they stick to, this is the year, we're just gonna give you through the end of the year to purchase the rest of it, our hands are gonna be forced. We're gonna be forced to go to the community and ask for a bond to be able to build the elementary school. That's gonna be a one-time option. Because if we don't buy the land, somebody else will, and then we're back to round one, where we're probably paying more land, more money for ground in an area that's not even close to the school. And then we have the same transportation, same maintenance, same sharing issues we do right now. So, anyway, there's still work to be done there. But that's why these guys are here, to help guide us through that conversation, and that's why we have a facility committee. Try to figure out, what does that look like? If there's a bond, what's the number for the bond? If there's an elementary school, I'll tell you, just in the last 2 years, from where the original quote came in, about a year and a half ago for the elementary school to where it is now, is a 30% increase. And it's not gonna go down. And so that's one of the things as we have to realize as we start to stabilize in the post-COVID era, is as much as we would like it, costs are not going to go down. And we're gonna have to try to figure out, like, when do we do this? What does the lag look like? What does the economy look like? How do we do this in a time period that allows us to get ahead of growing class sizes and ahead of deteriorating facilities? So anyway, there's still a lot of, I'm not here today at all to say, yep, we're definitely doing it. That's not even our call. We have to there has to be a group that gets a petition together to present to you guys. So, but everything's on the table still.
Right.
So regarding the bond and the voters, when we're talking about how do we get more people to vote, don't they do a report of where the majority of the voters are at? And like, isn't that a way we could strategize, not going into it, to get more information
Absolutely.
out to them?
Yep, and we did, and a lot of our voters come from the east side of town. So
Okay.
a lot of the newer developments, that kind of area,
Yeah.
that's where a lot of our voters come from. West side of town, not hardly any voters at all. So, so that's one of the things that's nice is, but about 60% of our kids come from the west side of town. So we got to figure out, how do we, and I think by sending stuff home in backpacks and email and text messages and stuff, hopefully we can get, to that area of town and just say, what information, how can we get you information? So that's essentially what we're looking for.
And this isn't anything new. The apathy for voting has been years. I mean, it's just, people have to they have to get out and vote, whether it's no or yes. They just have,
Yeah.
I mean, everyone has to, and that's the message you have to get out. But, people are busy. There's soccer, there's,
Well,
there's
it's
things
one
going
day,
on. Yeah, and getting people to understand, the ones that support it, to understand, you gotta get out to vote. So
There's-
that'll be
And communicating early voting and absentee ballot
Yes,
voting.
yeah.
And
Yep.
providing resources for people to register to vote.
Yeah.
Because that was one of the surprising things, was the number of parents that aren't currently registered.
Right. Right.
Yep.
You gotta make them want to become engaged in the process. Make them feel like they're invested in the process.
Right.
And in starting community meetings earlier and making sure that the public is aware of them and having guys like the Project Advocates and Shive Hattery, kind of lead that process. I mean, that's huge, right? So,
Right.
you get industry experts that have, done many school buildings that can, if they stand up there and they ask me, what are the BTUs in that see, I'm getting my language down here. BTUs in that HVAC unit, and I'll be like, I don't know, 7. And they're like, no, they're like 200,000. I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't really know. That's probably still low too. See, I'm catching on though. I'm
It
getting
is.
this. So,
Yes.
anyway, yep, that's it. That's all I got.
Okay. All right, well, the committee, you will keep us posted on what's as we go forward.
Absolutely.
And I think it is important that we reach out with, and not spending a lot of money. I think
Right.
that would be something that our community would not want us to do. And anyone who is passionate and has a voice, they will let us know.
Right.
And so we can just get the information out that we can and encourage everyone to get involved.
Yep.
All right, we'll go on then to our discussion items. 7.01, annual review of policy 505.8, parent and family engagement.
So this is an annual policy renewal, so we gotta make sure we do this annually, and really, there's no changes in it, we just have to review it. So it's still written the exact same way the IASB wrote it several years ago. It just talks about like how to get parents involved in like the Title I process. So because we're a Title I school, we need to make sure that parents understand that, like we have two events that we're doing, that you have the opportunity to participate in conversations with our administration, that we provide strategies that talk about, what kind of food options that we provide to avoid food scarcity. There's just quite a few little things in there. And then the same thing with the regulation policy. It's just kind of like, how do we enact that? So, we operate a school-wide program that involves parents on a timely and ongoing basis, and planning, review, implementation of the program. So that's really what it is, but just an annual review. So it's just, nothing's changed in it at all. So recommendation is, one and done. Just, you can go ahead and prove it tonight.
Any discussion? So the state hasn't changed anything, so
No.
we haven't. We're
Nothing.
not changing anything.
Yep,
Okay.
just reviewing it.
All right. 7.02, baseball, softball maintenance contracts.
So each year we contract the company to come do like annual work. So with the baseball field and softball field, some of the things you have to worry about is, especially along the grass area, you can develop what's called a lip, where the baseball or softball can strike there, and because there's a hump, it can bounce up funny, and it can, it makes playing it hard, but it also can create injury. When I was in Missouri Valley, we had one hit a lip in front of the third base and popped up, just smoked a kid right in the nose. So that was pretty ugly. So making sure that we keep the playing surface good. Let me go into the bids first. So we had to go out and get 3 bids. Jim Edelman, our grounds director, went out and got 3 bids, and he found the first bid was from Odie's. So Odie had recommended that they basically dig down and remove a product that we just had installed like 3 years ago. So 3 years ago we spent quite a bit of money, $135,000, to basically redo the baseball infield. So Odie's recommendation is to kind of dig out that product and then just add back in just AgriLime, and that was the cheapest bid. However, we said, well, if we spent $135,000 a few years ago putting that product in, and the coaches like it, it's playable and it drains well, that we should probably keep the same product. The other 2 products, the bids came in. One was from K&J Elite, and then the other one was from, I knew them as the Iowa Cubs, but it's Iowa Sports Turf out of Des Moines. One of the reasons that Jim would recommend going with Iowa Sports Turf, even though they're slightly, so the R&J, or was it J&R? Or K&J?
K&J.
K&J Elite, they came in at $28,985, and Iowa Cubs came in at $29,130. One of the reasons that Jim would recommend going with Iowa Cubs is just because he felt like they did a much better job of providing, like, they have like report after report of soil samples and and all this kind of stuff. And then they also threw in like some like laser leveling and that kind of stuff that the other company didn't mention anything about laser leveling. So it's about, it's about a $200, I guess not even $145 increase from the other one. But Jim would like to recommend going with them, and then they would also use the leftover product and move it over the softball field and laser level the softball field for an additional $1,500. So that's one of the things that Jim liked about it, was we can kind of get 2 fields taken care of for a total amount of, $30,000. So, so that's what Jim had made that recommendation. So, and you have all that information in front of you.
Any discussion? And so, Jim Dermody, the coaches in that, they would like to keep what we have currently on
Correct.
the field.
Yep. The
Yeah.
Stura Edge is what they have. I think it was $135,000 is what they spend to move from Ag Lime to Dura Edge. So, you don't want to just throw away that work.
Absolutely, and I believe
So-
that we had issues with our fields before with rocks in it, and they were not in good condition. That
Right.
when they went to this, it was because we want the safety of the kids more than any, that's
Correct, yeah.
our thing.
The other thing was timeliness too. Iowa Sports can come out here like in the next couple weeks and knock this out before the ball season starts.
Okay.
So that's one of the reasons that Jim liked what they had said. The other one wouldn't give a definitive timeline on when they can come out. So
Okay. And the project would take 2 days?
Yep, 2 days, but they can be out here in mid-April. So
Okay. All right. Any discussion? All right, we'll go to 7.03, local government risk pool participation for natural gas.
So this just allows us to participate in a pool. Basically, what we do is we buy a policy that basically gives us, consistent pricing throughout the year. And so if prices skyrocket, we don't pay any more. If prices go less, unfortunately, we don't get a little rebate either. But it's just like that budget plan. I mean, I'm on a budget plan right now, so just a little bit of a risk that you pay, but with our old units right now, like the risk that we're gonna have a bad years, that could cripple you. So, cost wise. The other thing is because this is essentially it's like you're buying an insurance policy is what it is. So because you're buying this, you can purchase this out of management fund, and which leaves, if you don't do this, all that money comes out of the general fund. So it'll frees up more general fund dollars to be spent on students. So
Any discussion? All right. 7.04, professional service contract, project advocates.
So we have project advocates right here. So their service contract would be, is this one for, let's see here. This is for all the services, right? This is for, roofs, HVAC, Titan Hill HVAC, high school commons. So this would be for an amount not to exceed $122,000. So when you think about, $3.5 million worth of work, this is pretty consistent with what you would find as far as a percentage goes. And so then that would be, so Brett would be the one that would be kind of on site throughout the week, when they're here and working, so. Provide that oversight, so. Do you guys have anything else I'm not adding to this? Do you guys have any questions for these guys? No?
I believe last week you said that we need to get going on like the timeline and stuff to get stuff ordered for the HVAC. Is that something that, do we have any action items or anything for that?
Tomorrow we're meeting with Chi Hattery's coming,
Okay,
we're meeting
cool.
to run through that, so
Okay.
it's rolling.
Yep.
Yeah. And then we also have, for April 1st meeting, we actually did get, just today, we got in some bids from Optimized Systems to do the design work and implementation for the controls. So, so hopefully I'll bring those to you guys on April 1st to look at and approve. Okay.
Any other questions, discussion? All right. Go to 7.05, professional service contract for Shive Hattery.
So I sent you guys, if you look at your email, I sent you another email, and this one was, let's see, Shive. So this was for, I asked them, we had that one bid to do the high school commons and the roof bids for $85,000. I asked them to separate them out so they can give us a, like if we just did the roof bid. The roof bid comes in at, for them to do design. Now just note that it's state law that we have to have an architect or an engineer sign off on any work that's done to roofs. So this is a requirement. So their bid is for $55,500 plus expenses, but they wrote in that the expenses are not to exceed $2,500. So that's like travel back and forth, any printing expenses, those types of things. So that's for the roofs. If you were going to do the commons area, that bid stayed largely the same, still that like $37,500 plus another $2,500 or $1,000 in expenses. They did give us, if we agreed to both, they're going to give us an $8,000 deduction. My recommendation at this point is just to approve the roofs. I think with the commons, I mean, really what we're looking is for somebody to come in and give us, like, tell us what colors to paint things. I mean, we can pick out some lights. We can pick out some, ceiling tiles are pretty standard. I mean, it's the colors and the graphics and that kind of stuff that we just need to find a partner to help us do that. So, and I think we can find somebody to do it for a little less money. It's nothing to do with Shive Hattery. They are a great company. They are going to work with us on other things. That's like a premium expense. And right now, I would use a different analogy. It's like I tell my wife she's got one taste on a different budget. So want to make sure that we understand the budget that we're rocking with. So if anybody has any suggestions for people who can come in and do that design stuff, let me know. So, but my recommendation would be just to approve the roof bid, and we'll figure out the commons on our own. So.
Any questions? Has there been any thought, I don't know, do we have any students that, not that they would finalize it, but to get ideas from students on graphics or anything like that?
We can potentially ask them. I think unfortunately students sometimes do what's kind of the popular view right now, and I don't want to have, and in 5
Right.
years it'll be outdated. So
Okay.
I think it does require more of a professional to come in. Not to say that students can't give us some decent.
Right, and
Yeah.
I'm not saying it would be only them.
Oh, right,
I'm just
yeah,
saying
gotcha.
to incorporate
Oh, yeah, no, that'd
with
be
the
cool,
students to come in and just, as they go to other schools, and if they see something really cool or,
Yeah.
something, just not to say they would decide or do it, but that might get some,
Excitement.
ownership.
Yeah, ownership. Yeah, for sure.
And that, and then as, we're talking about bonds, I mean, the more we get people involved and the students involved, because that's the one thing, even when we were hiring superintendents, we had more surveys from the students because we gave the students time during, or the administrator
Right.
gave students time during school. And I mean, I was questioned on that, and I said, but it's the students that we want to come back. We
Right.
want them to have ownership in their building and their school, because once they go to college, we want them to come back to our community. That's why we're doing all of this.
Right.
And so I'm just throwing out that suggestion. That might be something, and if we find someone that would work with a class or something, it might be
No.
kind of neat.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. No, I think if we can find somebody, and then we can figure out a process for that to make sure we get some student engagement. So that's
Do the
great.
kids, do the high school students have like a graphic design class? Because there's AI apps where you can actually it'll just do it all for you.
I do not believe we have a graphic design
I don't know what we have for the high school, because
Yeah.
my kids aren't there yet,
Right,
but to
right.
do something where there's AI that can literally take your whole entire room and put the
Yeah.
colors where you need them to be and shows you all the different examples. I don't know if there's something where they're in computer class where they can work on something like that.
I can ask,
You know,
for
just to
sure.
kind of give them an
Yeah.
idea and insight on what the process looks like, and because that's
Right.
becoming such a thing.
Yeah, no,
something
I
to
can
consider.
definitely ask, yeah.
A lot more cost efficient, I would say.
Yeah, for sure, yeah. I mean, as long as it looks good, I don't really care
Yeah.
what the process looks like, so.
Right.
And as long as I don't have to design it, because I don't think
Yes.
anybody would want that, so. Be a lot of white.
No, it's blue and white.
Sorry, these are blue. Some blue, some white.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, I can
I
definitely
think it'd be
look into
cool
it.
though if the
Yeah.
kids were involved in some way.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of years ago, we had, when we were PTA, we were purchasing the playground equipment, and we went to the kids and said, hey, make us drawings of things that you would think would be really neat. And it's just really fun to see what their creativity and that, and we couldn't do everything, but, you know, there were some things that, you know, they wanted something to climb on. They
Right.
wanted, you know, things like that. So I
Yeah.
don't think we could get the dinosaurs that they wanted to.
Those would be sweet.
Like,
I used to
Yeah.
think,
kids
like,
have
how can we find those old like Sinclair dinosaurs? My
Oh,
grandpa had
yeah.
one in his backyard for a while, it was awesome.
Students have been a part of the process in that regard for a long time. I
Yeah.
remember when I was in fourth grade, and they were gonna do new playground equipment back when we still had the elementary right connected to the high school. They asked our
Seven.
classes what our preferences were, so
Yeah.
it's a tradition I think that needs to continue.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah. Having them, I misinterpreted. I thought you meant like having one of them lead it. I'm like, oh, I don't know.
No,
I was
no,
like,
no,
they
no,
can
no.
definitely be involved, but.
No,
I
I'm
need
just saying ideas.
An adult, yeah, no, I think that's great, yeah. That part I can get behind,
Yeah,
for sure.
absolutely,
So,
absolutely. Okay, comments and suggestions. This is the second time during our, agenda that anyone in our audience or anyone online, if they want to type something in, can address the board. Okay, hearing none, we'll go on to our action items. 9.01, annual review of policy 505.8, parent and family engagement.
Madam President,
Mr. Houston.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the annual review of policies 505.8 and 505.8 R1, parent and family engagement.
Second.
Any discussion? Vote, please.
Mrs. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mrs. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Sorensen?
Yes.
Mr. Wright?
Yes.
Ms. Atkins?
Yes.
Mr. Houston?
Yes.
Mrs. Shuffle?
Yes. 9.02, baseball, softball maintenance contracts.
Madam President,
Mr. Houston.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the contract with Iowa Sports Turf, along with the $1,500 laser leveling for a total of $30,630.
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion? Vote, please.
Mrs. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Sorensen?
Yes.
Mr. Wright?
Yes.
Ms. Atkins?
Yes.
Mr. Houston?
Yes.
Mrs. McDaniel? Yes. Mrs. Shuffle?
Yes. 9.03, local government risk pool participation for natural gas.
Madam President,
Mr. Houston.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the local government risk pool participation agreement with the local government risk pool commission for the total cost of $178,521.11.
Second.
Any discussion? Vote, please.
Mr. Sorensen?
Yes.
Mr. Wright?
Yes.
Ms. Atkins?
Yes.
Mr. Houston?
Yes.
Mrs. McDaniel? Yes. Mrs. Peterson?
Yes.
Mrs. Shuffle?
Yes. 9.04, professional service contract, project advocates.
Madam President,
Mr. Houston.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the professional service agreement with Project Advocates for summer project scope work for the amount not to exceed $122,000.
Second.
Any discussion? Vote, please.
Mr. Wright?
Yes.
Ms. Atkins?
Yes.
Mr. Houston?
Yes.
Mrs. McDaniel? Yes. Mrs. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Sorensen?
Yes.
Mrs. Shuffle?
Yes. 9.05, professional service contract, Shive Hattery.
Madam President,
Mr. Houston.
I'd like to make a motion to approve a professional service contract with Shive Hattery for roof repair with a total of $55,000 plus expenses.
Second.
Any discussion? Vote, please.
Ms. Atkins?
Yes.
Mr. Houston?
Yes.
Mrs. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mrs. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Sorensen?
Yes.
Mr. Wright?
Yes.
Mrs. Sheffield?
Yes. Items of interest, future board meetings. Our next regular board meeting will be April 1st, 2024, and aren't we starting at 6 PM?
We are starting at 6 PM. This is, you're right. It
We
is
have
at
two,
6.
we have 2 board meetings that evening. One will
Yes.
start at 6 PM and the second regular meeting will start at 6:30.
Okay,
I should have added the other one. So the hearing will start at 6 PM, and then the actual meeting will start at 6:30.
okay, but we need to be here by 6 PM.
Yes.
That's the main thing that everyone needs to know. We're starting at 6 o'clock on April 1st. It's
Correct.
not, that's not April Fools, right?
That is not, no.
All right, so we'll have the hearing starting at 6 PM that everyone needs to be here for. Anything else?
Did we need to vote on the gift from Dr. Rossick?
That was part of the consent agenda.
That was, okay.
Yep.
And you're just going to include that when we do have gifts?
Correct.
Include that in our
And
consent agenda?
Yeah,
I
and
would-
I'll bring attention to it. So
And
you guys
that's
will
what I was
approve it
gonna
as part of the
request.
consent agenda. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything else? Can I get a motion to approve, to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? We can go.